One of the illegal immigrants who brutally murdered 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungaray was in court for the first time. His bail's been set at $10 million because the judge believes he's a flight risk. And the details we learned today are just sickening. Prosecutors say this lowlife assaulted Jocelyn for 2 hours before killing her. Her mom and the DA are fighting to make sure this monster gets the ultimate punishment.
She had such a bright future ahead of her, and I knew she was going to go very far. And, these monsters took that opportunity from her.
As soon as our lab results are back, and if they support a death penalty eligible type of capital murder, then we'll come back and ask for no bond. Our immigration system is broken, and if there was ever a case that reflected that, it's this one.
He's among several illegals accused of brutal crimes like rape and murder across the country. Instead of showing humanity for victims like Rachel Morin, the liberal media is more worried over what word you call their killers.
What do you tell the parents of those people, those young girls who were killed? This is absurdity. The preponderance of these people, Michael, are male.
But what is the difference between an illegal immigrant who unfortunately engages in that activity?
And we don't like that. I want to be clear. We don't use the term illegal. So
yeah, we don't,
undocumented individuals.
That's
sweet. They're illegal aliens.
Undocumented individuals.
All right, Judge, so what are the chances this guy does get the death penalty?
Well, that's a very long ways away, and I've been in exactly that situation where you heard the DA, Kim Og, from Harris County in Texas. Look, we don't know yet if there are special circumstances that would apply. We know that these two dirtbag animals took this child under a bridge for 2 hours, and that when we found her, when she was found, her hands were tied and she was naked from the waist down. If there are special circumstances, then this becomes a death-eligible case. It is not a decision that is made quickly. There are usually committees within a DA's office, but the DA is the one ultimately who makes the decision after speaking, of course, with the family and what the family wants. I think that the big issue here is the fact that this case is not going to go to trial for at least a year. If it is and does become a death penalty case, we're talking super due process. It will take a year and a half, even a year and 3/4 before it goes to trial. What's significant about this case is that one of these dirtbags, one is 26, the other is 22, had an ankle monitor on his ankle, and ICE took it off because they said he had no criminal record. I dare ICE, I dare them to explain to the American people how they confirmed that one did not have a criminal record. Did they communicate with ICE? Who did they speak to in Venezuela? And what transcript did they get from Venezuela? I guarantee they have no answer, just like Joe Biden has no answer. And I am sick and tired of people saying you can't call them illegal aliens. You're stupid, okay? The United States Code, Section 2012, Illegal Immigration Reform Act, refers to illegals as illegal aliens 93 times. You want to change the law, but stop trying to intimidate and control other people by using language that you're only comfortable with. And I have a third point here. The Democrats care more about how you refer to an illegal alien rapist than how you refer to an illegal alien who is actually raping or murdering young children. We have seen too much in this country. And for them to stand there and say, stop with this broad brush approach. Let me tell you something. If we don't have a broad brush approach, and if you can rebut it, I'm happy to let anyone in. But you have to start proving that these people are not pedophiles. They're not the people who kill other people. They're not thieves. They're not identity thieves. They don't beat their wives. They're not robbers, murderers, gang members, drug cartels. To me, the presumption is that they are, because the first thing that they did was break the law to come into this country. And the fact that we tolerate this and we allow the left to tell us how to speak when we have to deal with the most horrific animal kind of crimes that are occurring in this country is an outrage.
Yeah, Greg, what is it? The obsession with the language instead of the action?
Well, that is the encapsulation of the woke disease. The underlying reason for this, the left has to change the language to create distance from the consequences that their actions have wrought. They're essentially running from the truth using their mouth. They're no longer responsible for illegal immigrant criminals murdering an American mom or an American daughter. Instead, it's a young newcomer, who has trouble assimilating with an oppressive Western culture. And they're striking out against imperialism, leaving 2 individuals, currently unpulsed. How soon before the phrase undocumented is viewed as hurtful, right? How soon is the word victim is replaced by something else? How soon before Rachel Morin will be described on MSNBC as a person who identifies as deceased? This is the woke disease. It's been around before the term woke, but the idea of using rhetoric in order to cover up evil is just part of all cultural Marxism. It's why we have crime, homelessness, dying cities, the shift away attacking real problems with justice, instead focusing on the opportunity costs of virtue signaling. Simone Sanders, what a creep. She's a woman. Like, what is going on with women, liberal women? What is your story? She would rather police words than police criminals. This is a luxury belief that maybe Simone Sanders can afford, but America can't.
Yeah.
What is it with liberal women, Katie?
I wouldn't know the answer to that question, but I did want to answer Michael Steele's question when he asked, what's the difference between this person coming and committing these crimes and someone who maybe was an American citizen? Well, the difference is that they shouldn't be here. And you should apply the broken windows theory of crime to illegal immigration. It is illegal to cross the border without permission. That's crime number 1. Number 2, you falsely acclaim asylum, also a federal crime. And then that led to the murder of this young girl and a number of other young women across the country. And you're right, liberal women are more concerned about hurting people's feelings than actually protecting women in this country from monsters who are coming from foreign countries who do have criminal backgrounds. And they can't test it because the governments, like Venezuela, don't give us the information. They're letting people out of prison and they're not telling us who they are. They're just letting them come here. So one crime leads to another, and they're willing to allow these people to commit crimes for the sake of their agenda and to make people feel like, well, we're the tolerant ones. Is it tolerant to allow people like this into the country to murder people's children? I don't think so.
Well, let's ask Richard. Is it tolerant? Richard?
Well, one, my family goes out, Tom, to Jocelyn. My heart goes out to Jocelyn's family. And I think these suspects, right, if they're found guilty, the whole book should be thrown at them. This is a very heinous...
Death penalty?
Sure. Right, and it's a very heinous crime. But I think that we also, too, in this country, we believe in nuance and bright lines. And I think there's a clear bright line between these 2 individuals that you're watching on your screen and an infant that crosses the border with their mother, who, yes, according to the law that Judge Janine mentioned, would be considered an illegal alien. But they did not make the choice to cross. They crossed with their family, and now all they want to do is assimilate.
We're not talking about dreamers. We're talking about illegals.
No, but yes,
we're
but
not talking about dreamers
hold on, I did not interrupt you. According to, I'm not changing the subject. I am not changing the subject, and I did not interrupt you. According to the law that you quoted, an infant that crosses the border would be deemed an illegal alien. Yes, they would. It doesn't have an age. It does not have an age differential there.
That's not in this statute.
It does not have an age differential.
Then
does it have an age differential? It doesn't.
Exactly. Know. You're pivoting.
I'm not pivoting. I'm telling you exactly what's on that paper you just read. So, like I was saying, I can clearly see there's not an age differential on there. So, like I was saying, if we want to have a conversation about how we fix this problem, one, those guys should be behind bars. Maybe the death penalty if the DA makes that decision. But we also need to be courageous as a country, whether you're a Democrat or you're a Republican, to say what that DA said at the beginning of this segment. Our immigration system is broken, and Democrats can't fix it alone, and neither can Republicans.
Babies aren't killing women.
But that's exactly the point that I'm making.
You're letting everyone in.
That's exactly the point I'm making. So if we're going to be courageous, let's fix it.
We're not talking about babies. That's the point. We're talking about murderous criminals who are let in because you're using the baby argument as a barrier. Like, let's have a conversation. We're not compassionate enough.
That's not what I said. I said there's a bright line and nuance to every conversation, and there's one to this one as well.
We understand nuance. And
clearly you don't.
No, it's the nuance that brought us to this place. Exactly. It was nuance that got us to, hey, everybody should come over.
Is why we don't have new immigration laws, and we're having this conversation. We have a broken immigration system.
Well, Biden broke it. Everybody knows
No, it's been broken for decades.
He broke it, and look at the numbers. Up next, squad-style roid rage. AOC and Jamal Bowman going bonkers at a rally. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.